I spent 15 years building trust and profits for them. They gave me 17 seconds of voicemail. The notification hit at 6:42 a.m. while I was pumping gas on a Tuesday morning. My hand froze on the nozzle as David Holloway's recorded voice informed me that my position had been eliminated, effective immediately. No warning, no conversation. Just a digital execution delivered between the weather update and a spam text about car warranties. I didn't know it then, standing there in the fluorescent glare of a Shell station. But they just unlocked their own worst nightmare. My name is Natalie Brooks, and until 17 seconds ago, I was the senior client manager at Everline Strategies, one of Austin's most prestigious B2B marketing agencies. 38 years old, divorced, no kids, and completely devoted to a job that just discarded me like yesterday's coffee grounds. I played the voicemail again, certain I'd misheard. David's voice, crisp and emotionless. Natalie, this is David Holloway. After careful consideration, we've decided to restructure the client management department. Your position has been eliminated effective immediately. HR will send details about your final paycheck and benefits. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Like I was a fucking appliance they'd unplugged. The gas pump clicked off. 4782 hours. I stared at the numbers, trying to process what had just happened. Last Thursday, this same man had praised my Q1 performance in front of the entire leadership team. Natalie exemplifies the kind of dedication that built Everline, he'd said, flashing that practiced CEO smile. 15 years of excellence. My phone buzzed with an email from HR, already locked out of the company systems, already erased from the Monday morning meeting invites, already gone. I got back in my car and sat there, engine off, watching commuters rush past on their way to jobs that still existed. The shock wasn't that they'd fired me. Corporate America had taught me that loyalty only flows upward. The shock was the cowardice of it. A voicemail. Not even the decency of a video call or, God forbid, an actual conversation. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. Instead, a cold clarity settled over my thoughts like morning frost. They'd made a calculation. Natalie Brooks. Despite managing 32 of their highest value accounts, despite 15 years of relationship building, despite generating 40% of their annual revenue, was expendable. The thing about calculations is that sometimes you forget to carry the one. I pulled out my personal phone, the one IT couldn't touch, and scrolled through my contacts. Not the corporate directory, but my real contacts. The CEOs who texted me on weekends. The procurement directors who sent birthday cards. The CTOs who asked my advice on their daughters' college applications. 32 companies, over $200 million in annual contracts. All maintained by relationships I'd cultivated like a master gardener. Everline Strategies thought they owned those relationships. They thought client loyalty was about logos and contracts and service agreements. They thought 15 years of my life could be unwound with 17 seconds of recorded message. I started the car and headed home. Not to cry or panic or update my LinkedIn profile. I went home to make a list. Because David Holloway and his restructuring committee had made one critical error in their careful considerations. They'd forgotten that I still had 24 hours before the clients would hear about this from anyone but me. 15 years, that's 3,900 weekdays, give or take. I'd spent them building Everline Strategies from a scrappy startup in a South Austin strip mall to a $40 million agency with a glass tower view of Lady Bird Lake. I wasn't there for the ribbon cutting of the new office. That photo op was reserved for C-suite executives. But I was the one who'd landed the IBM subsidiary that paid for it. I started in 2010, fresh from a failed tech startup, desperate for stability. Everline had 12 employees then, including Janet Morrison, the founder who interviewed me over breakfast tacos at a food truck. I don't need another account manager, she'd said, wiping salsa verde from her chin. I need someone who understands that B2B isn't about businesses buying from businesses. It's about people trusting people. I became her protege, her secret weapon. While others pushed slide decks and ROI projections, I learned the names of clients' kids, remembered their coffee orders, sent handwritten notes after difficult quarters. When Janet sold the company to a private equity firm in 2018, she pulled me aside at her farewell party. "Watch out for yourself, Nat. The new money doesn't understand what we built here." She was gone within 6 months. Then came the parade of CEOs, first Richardson, who lasted 2 years before a scandal involving expense accounts and his assistant, then Patel, a decent guy who got headhunted by Microsoft, and finally, 6 months ago, David Holloway, fresh from transforming a competitor that no longer existed. The signs had been there, crystalline in hindsight. It started in March when the Morrison Industries renewal, my baby, my biggest win, got reassigned to Bradley Chen, a Stanford MBA who'd been with the company for all of 8 months. Just wanting to give Bradley some exposure to enterprise accounts, David had explained. No mention of the 3 years I'd spent cultivating that relationship, or the CEO who still texted me directly when he had concerns. Then came the exclusions. The strategic planning session in April, suddenly limited to director level and above, despite my managing more revenue than half the directors combined. The partner dinner at SXSW, where my invitation mysteriously got lost in the system, the new org chart that appeared on the internal wiki with my name in a noticeably smaller font. But the real tell was Melissa Kim, brought in as Senior Vice President of Client Success, a position that hadn't existed before and seemed to overlap about 90% with what I did. Stanford MBA, ex-McKinsey, 15 years younger, and most importantly, she golfed with David on weekends. She'd shadow my client meetings, taking notes on her iPad, asking questions that revealed she'd never actually worked with enterprise B2B clients. Think of it as knowledge transfer, David had said when I'd asked about her presence in my quarterly review with Tecton Global. "We want to make sure institutional knowledge doesn't live in just one person." Translation: we want to make sure you're replaceable. I should have started looking then. Should have returned those LinkedIn messages from recruiters. Should have seen the writing on the wall when my direct reports started getting mysteriously reassigned to other teams. But I was deep in the Stockholm syndrome of corporate loyalty, convinced that 15 years of excellence meant something. The final insult came last week, the Q1 Awards ceremony, where David had sung my praises. I'd closed 3 major renewals and upsold 2 others, bringing in an additional $4 million in annual recurring revenue. As I stood on that stage, accepting a glass plaque that probably cost $30, I caught Melissa whispering something to David. He nodded, made a note on his phone. Now I understood. That wasn't a celebration, it was a farewell tour. Make sure the old guard feels appreciated before you show them the door. Classic private equity playbook. Cut the highest salaries, keep the relationships, pray the clients don't notice. The thing about corporate betrayal is that it's never personal, which somehow makes it worse. I wasn't fired because I'd failed or because David disliked me. I was fired because on a spreadsheet somewhere, my $200,000 salary plus benefits looked like an easy line item to cut. Never mind that I generated 20 times that in revenue. Never mind that my client relationships were built on 15 years of trust. They thought those relationships were transferable, like office furniture or software licenses. They thought Melissa Kim with her MBA theories and her iPad notes could slide into my role on Monday morning and my clients would never know the difference. They were about to learn that trust isn't fungible, loyalty isn't transferable. And sometimes, the most expensive mistakes come from trying to save money. I didn't cry. That's what surprised me most about that first night. I sat in my home office, the one I'd carefully curated with awards and client gifts over the years, and felt nothing but a strange, crystalline calm. The kind of clarity that comes when you realize you've been sleepwalking and suddenly snap awake. I called HR at 4:47 p.m., knowing Sandra would still be at her desk. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with the discomfort of someone forced to deliver bad news they didn't create. "Natalie, I'm so sorry." "Save it, Sandra. I just need to know the logistics. When do I return equipment? What about my accumulated PTO?" "It will send a box for the laptop and phone. Your final paycheck will include your unused vacation days. There's, a severance package." but it requires signing an NDA and non-compete. How generous is this severance? 6 weeks. I actually laughed. 6 weeks for 15 years. Less than half a week per year of service. And the non-compete? 18 months, no client contact, no working for competitors within a 100-mile radius of Austin. Send it to my personal email. I'll have my lawyer review it. Natalie, I want you to know this wasn't my... I hung up. Sandra was a good person trapped in a bad system, but I didn't have energy for her guilt. I poured myself a glass of the Macallan 18 I'd been saving for a special occasion. Unemployment seemed special enough. The whiskey burned, but it was a good burn, clarifying. I opened my laptop, my personal one, and pulled up a spreadsheet I'd maintained for years. Not a company document, but my own record. Every client, every contract value, every renewal date, every personal connection. 32 active accounts. Combined annual value, $23.7 million. My personal cell phone held direct numbers for 26 CEOs, 43 department heads, and countless others who thought of me not as their account manager, but as their trusted advisor. The company phone sat on my desk, already dead. They'd been efficient about that. But they'd forgotten, or never knew, that I'd been giving out my personal number for years. Just in case, I'd always said, emergencies don't follow business hours. At 9:17 p.m., my first text came through. Harrison Finch from Argento Construction. Hey Nat, tried to call your office line about tomorrow's quarterly review. You okay? I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back, Hi Harrison, I'm no longer with Everline as of today. I'm sure someone will reach out about your review soon. My phone rang immediately. What do you mean you're no longer with Everline? Harrison's voice was sharp, concerned. I'd known him for 7 years, guided his company through a complete digital transformation. I was let go this morning. Restructuring. They fired you? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sure Melissa Kim will take excellent care of you. She's been shadowing my meetings. That child who keeps asking me to explain what we do? Like I have time to give B2B 101 lessons. He paused. Natalie, I need to think about this. Can I call you tomorrow? Of course, I'll always have time for you. Harrison? The night stretched on. I made notes, not out of revenge, but out of habit. 15 years of institutional knowledge flowing onto pages of yellow legal pad. Which clients needed hand-holding during renewals? Who hated morning meetings? Which procurement director was going through a divorce and appreciated extra patience? The kind of intelligence you can't transfer in a 2-week notice period I'd never been given. At 2 a.m., I finally went to bed. But sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about Janet Morrison's warning, about the new money not understanding what we'd built. They saw Everline as a machine, input sales effort, output revenue. They never understood it was an ecosystem built on relationships, maintained by people who gave a damn. By 3:30 a.m., I was back at my desk, this time with coffee instead of whiskey. I pulled up my LinkedIn, not to update my status, I wasn't ready for that public admission, but to review my connections. Over 3,000 carefully cultivated, real relationships, not just digital handshakes. The sun rose on a Tuesday that felt like a different lifetime from Monday. My phone showed 17 missed calls from various clients, word already spreading through the invisible networks that really run business. I didn't return them yet. First, I needed to understand my position. The severance agreement arrived at 7 a.m. I forwarded it to my lawyer without reading past the non-compete clause. 18 months of not talking to clients I'd served for 15 years, they might as well have asked me to forget my own name. I made a decision then. Sitting in my kitchen with morning light streaming through windows I'd rarely seen at this hour. I wouldn't sign anything. I wouldn't take their 6 weeks of hush money. Because I'd realized something during that sleepless night. They'd fired me, but they couldn't fire the relationships I'd built. Those belonged to me. By 10 a.m. Tuesday, I'd made my decision. No vindictive emails, no dramatic LinkedIn posts, no scorched earth. I would simply do what I'd always done, take care of my clients. The first call was to Margaret Walsh at Meridian Financial. We'd worked together for 12 years, weathered the 2015 data breach that almost killed their company, celebrated when they went public in 2019. Natalie, thank God you called back. What's this I hear about you leaving Everline? News travels fast. Harrison texted me last night, said you'd been let go. That can't be right. I kept my voice steady, professional. It's true, restructuring. But I wanted to check in, make sure you have everything you need for the Q2 campaign launch. Everything I need. Margaret's voice sharpened. I need my account manager who actually understands financial services compliance. I need the person who talked me off a ledge when the SEC came knocking. I don't need some MBA rookie asking me to explain what a derivative is. I'm sure Melissa will. Melissa Kim? The one who asked if we could make compliance more fun with animated GIFs? Natalie, I'm serious. If you're starting your own shop, I'm interested. I haven't made any decisions yet. Well, make them fast. Our contract is up for renewal in 6 weeks. The pattern repeated with each call. Professional concern morphing into personal outrage. By noon, I'd spoken with 9 clients. Not one expressed confidence in Everline's ability to maintain service quality without me. Then came the call that changed everything. Roberto Vega, CEO of Pinnacle Manufacturing, a client I'd landed 3 years ago after a year-long courtship. Natalie, I just got off the phone with David Holloway. He personally assured me the transition would be seamless. My stomach tightened. So they were already doing damage control. He also mentioned you'd been let go for performance issues. The words hit like ice water. Performance issues? His exact words were strategic misalignment with company direction. When I pressed, he implied you'd been resistant to new methodologies, stuck in old ways of doing things. The calm I'd maintained shattered. They weren't just firing me, they were poisoning the well. Roberto, you've worked with me for 3 years. Have I ever given you any reason to doubt my performance or methodology? A long pause. No. Which is why I'm calling you and not believing him. But Natalie, if he's saying this to me, he's saying it to others. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen, trembling with rage. It was one thing to fire me, another to assassinate my character. 15 years of exceptional service, and they were rewriting history to justify their decision. I pulled up my contact list again, this time with different eyes. Not just reaching out to maintain relationships, but to protect my reputation. The calls became more strategic, more pointed. Hi, Jennifer. I wanted to touch base about your renewal next month. I know Everline will be reaching out, but I wanted to ensure you have all the historical context for your account. Tom. I heard there might be some communication from Everline about my departure. I wanted you to hear directly from me. Sarah, I know your team has that critical integration coming up. I've documented everything, but in case you need clarity on any of our past discussions. By 4 p.m., my phone was hot from constant use. 22 conversations, each revealing more about Everline's ham-fisted damage control. David had clearly sent Melissa and the sales team scrambling, but they were discovering what I'd always known. Relationships aren't just about knowing the account details. They're about trust built over years of proving yourself when things go wrong. The group chat notification caught me off guard. 5 names I recognized immediately: Harrison Finch, Margaret Walsh, Roberto Vega, Jennifer Liu from Tech Forward, and Samuel Hayes from Vertex Systems. My core 5, the clients who'd become something like friends over the years. Harrison, we need to talk, all of us. Margaret, conference call in 20 minutes. Roberto, I'll set up the bridge. I watched the messages flow, a strange mix of dread and gratitude washing over me. These weren't just clients. They were people who'd trusted me with their businesses, their careers, sometimes their fears about industry changes or economic downturns. The call lasted an hour. 5 executives, representing roughly $8 million in annual contracts, discussing what Everline's decision meant for their businesses. I mostly listened, occasionally clarifying points about ongoing projects or upcoming renewals. Here's what I don't understand, Samuel said near the end. They fire their best account manager with no transition plan, no warning to us, and expect us to just continue as normal? It's insulting, Jennifer added. Like we're just line items on a spreadsheet. Harrison's voice carried the weight of decision. Natalie, I'll ask you directly. Are you planning to continue in this industry? I haven't. Because if you are, we need to know. Our contracts have termination clauses for cause, including failure to maintain agreed service levels. And I'd argue that firing our primary contact without consultation constitutes a service level failure. The implications hung in the air. I chose my words carefully. I would never ask any of you to make decisions based on personal loyalty to me. Margaret laughed, sharp and knowing. Who said anything about personal? This is business. You understand our business. Melissa Kim thinks I work in financial services or something. That's a direct quote from last week's meeting. The call ended with no commitments, no promises. But I knew these people. I'd spent years learning their tells, their decision-making patterns. The die was cast. That evening, I opened a new document on my laptop. Not a revenge plan or a corporate takedown strategy, just a simple business plan. Brooks Consulting, Strategic B2B Relationship Management. Because they'd been wrong about me being stuck in old ways, I wasn't resistant to change. I was about to show them exactly how innovative I could be. Wednesday morning, 8:47 a.m., I sat at my desk, laptop open, coffee cold, staring at the email I'd drafted and redrafted 17 times. Professional, clean, devastating. Subject: Important update regarding your account management. Dear client name, I wanted to personally inform you that as of Monday, July 21st, I am no longer with Everline Strategies. While this transition was unexpected, my commitment to your success remains unchanged. Over our X years working together, we've built something valuable, a partnership based on mutual understanding and trust. I want to ensure you have all the information needed for a smooth continuation of your services. I am currently establishing an independent consultancy focused on strategic B2B relationship management. While I cannot speak to Everline's future plans for your account, I want you to know that I remain available should you need any clarification on our past work together or guidance on your ongoing initiatives. Your success has always been my priority. That hasn't changed. If you'd like to discuss your options moving forward, I'm available at this email address or my personal phone number, which you already have. Thank you for the trust you've placed in me over the years. It has been an honor serving your organization. Best regards, Natalie Brooks. I customized each one, adding personal touches, mentioning specific projects we'd completed, challenges we'd overcome, victories we'd celebrated. No bad-mouthing Everline, no dramatic revelations, just facts, professionally delivered, with a door left wide open. At 9 a.m. sharp, I hit send on all 25 emails. By 9:07, my phone started ringing. Natalie, this is Kevin Park from Innovate Solutions. I just saw your email. Can you take a call with my leadership team in 30 minutes? By 9:15, 3 more calls, 2 emergency meeting requests, and a text from Harrison that simply said, "Game on." The responses fell into 3 categories. The loyalists, like Harrison and Margaret, who were ready to jump ship immediately. The pragmatists, who wanted to understand their options before making any moves. And the cautious few, who thanked me for the notice and wished me well. Corporate speak for, "We'll see how this plays out." At 11:23 a.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Ms. Brooks, this is Jonathan Hartley from Hartley & Associates. I represent Everline Strategies." My lawyer had warned me this might happen. "How can I help you, Mr. Hartley?" "My client is concerned about communications you've sent to their customers. I need to remind you that client relationships belong to Everline, not to individual employees." "Former employee," I corrected. "And I'm simply informing people I've worked with about my change in employment status. Unless Everline has trademarked the concept of professional courtesy." "Ms. Brooks, Any attempt to solicit Everline's clients? I haven't solicited anyone. I've informed business contacts of my availability should they need historical context about their accounts. If they choose to evaluate their vendor relationships based on that information, that's their prerogative. We're prepared to pursue legal action if necessary. Mr. Hartley. I spent 15 years building those relationships. I know exactly what's in my employment agreement and what isn't. I also know that Everline is about to discover the difference between owning a contract and owning a relationship. Now, unless you have something more substantive than vague threats, I have calls to return. I hung up, my hands steady despite the adrenaline surge. They were scared. Good. By 2 p.m., the dam burst. Jennifer Liu called with her CFO on the line, asking pointed questions about their contract termination clauses. Samuel Hayes forwarded me an email from Melissa Kim that was so poorly written and tone-deaf. I actually felt second-hand embarrassment. Roberto Vega's assistant reached out to schedule a meeting for Monday, with me, not Everline. The master stroke came at 3:47 p.m. Margaret Walsh, beautiful genius that she was, sent an email to David Holloway, ceasing me and her entire leadership team. David, Meridian Financial is invoking the service level agreement clause in our contract, specifically Section 7.3 regarding material changes in account management without prior consultation. We are placing our account under review, effective immediately. Furthermore, we require a detailed transition plan that addresses how Everline intends to maintain the institutional knowledge that Ms. Brooks provided. Please note that our regulatory compliance requirements, which Ms. Brooks intimately understands, do not allow for learning curves. We expect a response within 24 hours. Margaret Walsh, CEO, Meridian Financial. Within an hour, 4 more clients sent similar notices. The beautiful thing about B2B contracts is they're full of protective clauses that everyone ignores until they don't. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Melissa Kim. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. She'd made her choice when she agreed to shadow my meetings, to study my methods while knowing they planned to fire me. She could figure it out on her own, just like I'd had to 15 years ago. By 5 p.m., I had 17 confirmations. 17 clients actively reconsidering their Everline relationships. The other 8 were playing wait and see, but even that was a problem for Everline. Uncertainty is cancer in the agency world. It spreads, metastasizes, kills revenue projections, and spooks investors. I closed my laptop and poured myself a glass of wine, a good bottle this time, not the emergency whiskey. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and threats and probably more phone calls than I could handle. But tonight, I'd sent a message written in the only language corporate America truly understands. Money, 25 emails, 17 confirmations. Approximately $19 million. In annual recurring revenue suddenly at risk. All in less than 8 hours. Turns out I wasn't stuck in old ways after all. I'd just given Everline Strategies a masterclass in modern business dynamics. Lesson 1. Relationships are the only real currency. They should have given me more than 17 seconds. Thursday morning brought chaos to Everline's glass tower. I knew because Tyler Morrison, a junior analyst I'd mentored, texted me at 7:23 a.m. Holy shit, Nat. Emergency all hands at 8. David looks like he hasn't slept. Legal is here. What did you do? I didn't respond, but I smiled into my coffee. Tyler sent updates throughout the morning, each more frantic than the last. 8:14 a.m. He just said temporary client concerns. Margaret Walsh is on speaker. She's destroying him. 8:31 a.m. Melissa just got pulled out of the meeting by HR. 8:47 a.m. Brad from sales just quit. Mid-meeting, just stood up and walked out. 9:02 a.m. David just blamed communication failures for the situation. No mention of firing you. By 10 a.m., my LinkedIn was lighting up. 3 Everline employees had viewed my profile, including David himself. The agency world in Austin is small. Word was spreading fast. I had 4 messages from recruiters and 2 from competing agencies, just checking in. Then came the call I'd been expecting. Janet Morrison, founder and former CEO. Natalie, I just heard. I'm so sorry. Don't be. You warned me about the new money. I did. But I didn't think they'd be this stupid. David called me an hour ago, asking if I could help stabilize client relationships. Can you believe the nerve? What did you tell him? That he should have thought about stability before firing the person who maintained it. She paused. How bad is it for them? 17 clients are reconsidering, maybe more by now. Janet whistled low. That's got to be close to 50% of revenue. 47%, actually. You calculated it? I've had time on my hands. She laughed, then turned serious. Natalie, I have a proposition. I'm starting something new. Not an agency. I'm done with that model. More like a collective of senior consultants. People who actually understand relationships. Interested? Before I could answer, my phone beeped with another call. Everline's main number. Janet, I need to take this. Can we talk later? Of course, and Natalie, don't let them intimidate you. I switched calls. This is Natalie. Please hold for Mr. Holloway. Classical music played for 30 seconds before David's voice came on, attempting authority but betraying exhaustion. Natalie, we need to resolve this situation. What situation would that be, David? You know exactly what I mean. Your communication to our clients was inappropriate and potentially actionable. My communication was professional notice of my availability for consultation. If your clients are choosing to reevaluate their partnerships, perhaps you should examine why. Listen, I understand you're upset about the restructuring. I'm not upset, David, I'm liberated. For the first time in 15 years, I can choose who I work with based on mutual respect rather than corporate obligation. What do you want, Natalie? The desperation in his voice was palpable. I let the silence stretch before responding. Nothing from you. My clients, your clients, are simply exercising their rights under contracts I negotiated. Contracts with very specific SLA requirements and termination clauses. You might want to have legal review them. This is sabotage. This is consequences. You made a calculation that I was expendable. Your math was wrong. If you continue interfering with our client relationships, David, I'm going to stop you there. I've done nothing but respond to direct inquiries from business contacts. I haven't pitched services, haven't solicited business, haven't even updated my LinkedIn status. I'm simply existing, available for consultation. If that threatens your business model, perhaps the model is the problem. A muffled conversation in the background, probably legal counsel. Then, we're prepared to discuss a consulting arrangement to help with the transition. I actually laughed. You fired me via voicemail. You told clients I had performance issues. And now you want to hire me as a consultant? We could make it worth your while. My rate is $5,000 per day. Minimum 30-day engagement, paid in advance. Silence. That's excessive. That's market rate for emergency executive consulting. Oh, and I'd need a written apology for the performance issues comment sent to every client you spoke with. That's not going to happen. Then neither is the consulting arrangement. David, you had 15 years of my expertise for a fraction of that rate. You chose to throw it away for a 6-week severance that I haven't even signed. Actions meet consequences. I hung up. Within an hour, the real fireworks started. My phone rang with a call from Tom Richards, Everline's CMO, one of the few senior leaders I still respected. Natalie, Tom here. I wanted you to know I just submitted my resignation. Tom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. This isn't just about you, though you're the final straw. It's about what Everline has become. David just asked me to put out a press release blaming the client exits on market conditions. I've got 30 years in this business. I'm not ending my career lying for a fool. Where will you go? Janet Morrison called me this morning about her new venture. Might be time for something different. He paused. You know, 3 other senior people are meeting with HR today about exit packages. The talent exodus is beginning. After we hung up, I sat back and watched the dominoes fall. LinkedIn notifications showed 5 Everline employees updating their profiles to open to work. Tyler sent one final text. Internal email just went out. Hiring freeze effective immediately. Also, Melissa Kim is now pursuing other opportunities. This is insane. By end of business Thursday, the scoreboard was clear. 21 clients in active contract review, 3 senior leadership resignations, unknown number of employee departures pending, 1 CMO with 30 years of industry respect walking out the door, all from 17 seconds of voicemail. The beautiful irony was that I hadn't orchestrated any of it. I'd simply told the truth, professionally and consistently. Everline's collapse was entirely self-inflicted, a cascade failure triggered by their own short-sighted decision. They'd thought they were cutting costs. Instead, they'd cut their own throat. Friday morning, Austin's coffee shops were already buzzing with the weekend's approach. But I sat in my favorite corner of Epoch Coffee, laptop open, watching the final act unfold. The barista, who knew my order by heart after years of client meetings here, brought over my cortado without being asked. Working from home today? She asked with a smile. Something like that. Maria. Starting something new. My inbox showed 47 unread emails. 28 were from clients, former Everline clients, asking about my consulting services. The rest were a mix of recruiters, industry contacts expressing support, and 3 separate interview requests from trade publications who'd caught wind of Everline's implosion. I ignored them all for the moment, focusing instead on a single message from Roberto Vega, sent at 6:42 m. Natalie. Argento Constructions Board met in emergency session last night. We're terminating our Everline contract, effective immediately. We're also prepared to offer you a full-time position as Director of Strategic Partnerships, reporting directly to me. Alternatively, if you prefer the consulting route, we'll guarantee a minimum annual contract of $500,000. This isn't charity. This is business. You understand our industry, our culture, and most importantly, you understand that business is ultimately about trust. Call me when you're ready. Roberto. I read it twice, then closed my laptop and watched the morning crowd flow past. Young professionals hurrying to jobs they thought were secure. The same illusion I'd carried for 15 years. My phone buzzed. Harrison Finch calling. Don't say yes to anyone else yet, he said without preamble. 5 of us are putting together a joint offer. We want to retain you as our strategic advisor, collective contract worth about $2 million annually. 2-year minimum term. Harrison, you saved my ass during the 2018 merger. You talked Jennifer through her IPO jitters. You helped Margaret navigate that compliance nightmare. We're not looking for a vendor, Natalie. We're investing in a partner. After we hung up, I sat in comfortable silence, processing the reversal of fortune. Monday, discarded via voicemail. Friday, fielding 7-figure offers. A text from Tyler Morrison popped up. Final update. David just announced he's pursuing new opportunities to spend time with family. Board pushed him out. Janet Morrison is returning as interim CEO. She wants to talk to you about rebuilding. I smiled but didn't respond. That bridge hadn't just burned. It had been dynamited, napalmed, and the ashes scattered. Some things couldn't be rebuilt, shouldn't be rebuilt. At 11 a.m., I made my decision. Not the corporate position, not the joint consulting offer, not the return to Everline. Instead, I called Janet Morrison. I'm interested in your collective idea, I said, but I have conditions. No corporate hierarchy, no performance reviews, no voicemails, just senior professionals doing what they do best, on their own terms. Funny, Janet replied. That's exactly what I had in mind. By noon, I'd sent polite declines to the corporate offers and acceptances to 3 consulting contracts. Brooks Strategic Consulting would launch Monday with enough guaranteed revenue to cover 2 years of operations. No outside investment, no board of directors, no one who could fire me via voicemail ever again. I finished my coffee and walked out into the Austin heat. Somewhere in that glass tower by the lake, Everline Strategies was scrambling to salvage client relationships, staunch the talent bleeding, and explain to investors how they'd lost nearly half their revenue in less than a week. They'd learn, eventually, what I'd always known. The most expensive talent isn't the highest paid, it's the most connected. They'd tried to cut a cost and had cut an artery instead. My phone rang one last time. Unknown number. Natalie Brooks. Ms. Brooks. This is Samantha Reeves from the Austin Business Journal. We're running a story about the Everline situation. Would you care to comment? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. My only comment is this. I spent 15 years building something valuable. It took them 17 seconds to destroy it and less than 96 hours to realize their mistake. I hope other companies learn from their example. Can you elaborate on? No, that's all I have to say. The results speak for themselves. I hung up and turned my phone to silent. The war was over. Won not through anger or revenge, but through the simple act of being indispensable and knowing it. I didn't need to burn down the building. I just needed to walk away and take the light with me. The darkness that followed was their own creation. Monday morning would bring new challenges, new clients, new possibilities. But first, I had a weekend to enjoy and a bottle of champagne that finally had a worthy occasion. 15 years, 17 seconds, 25 clients. The math, in the end, was beautifully simple. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you're watching this, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one, and please share your thoughts about Natalie's journey. Have you ever experienced something similar in your workplace? Let me know in the comments.